Have you ever stopped to think why, no matter how hard you try, it seems impossible to quit that habit that consumes you? I understand, and I know exactly what you're going through. It feels like the more you fight against it, the stronger the addiction becomes, right? It's as if there's a voice in your head telling you that you're not capable, that it's part of you, that there's no way out. But let me tell you something. There is a way out, only it's not where you think it is. The solution doesn't lie in willpower, promises, or counting the days. If you don't understand what I'm about to tell you now, you will remain trapped in this cycle. What I have to say today could change everything. I know you want to break free, to live without these chains. And that is possible. In this video, we're going to explore together how Stoic philosophy could be the key for you to finally say goodbye to your addictions. Don't leave halfway through the video because by the end, you'll see that every minute was worth it. Let's begin. The first thing you need is to be honest with yourself. If you truly want to break free from an addiction, that is the initial step. We all face our challenges, but what often prevents us from overcoming them is the lack of honesty with ourselves. Most people try to hide from what binds them, but that only keeps us stuck. When you acknowledge the existence of a problem, you pave the way for change. That's the power of honesty. And let me tell you, it's liberating. I vividly remember the moment I looked at myself and said, I need to stop. I need to face this. For me, it was the addiction to procrastination. I kept putting off important things in my life, constantly telling myself that later would be the right time. But deep down, I knew I was deceiving myself. It wasn't easy to admit that, but it was transformative. I had to confront this habit that was holding me back, and at first, it was frightening. The fear of failure, the fear that I wasn't capable of change, was immense. But without that truth, you become a prisoner of your own illusions. Before continuing, I'm making available my latest ebook, Overcome Procrastination with Stoic Philosophy, the ultimate guide to success. In this ebook, I reveal the secret techniques that great philosophers use to eliminate procrastination. Are you seeking a life of success and freedom from your addictions? Click on the first pinned comment and download my ebook right now. Now, let's continue. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we must look inward and face reality as it is, without masking or softening the problems. Seneca, one of the great Stoic masters, said, "No wind is favorable to those who don't know where they are going." This means that if you lack clarity and honesty about your addictions, any effort will be in vain. It's like running without knowing the destination, going round in circles with no real progress. Perhaps you're wondering, why is it so hard to be honest with myself? The answer lies in our mind. It loves comfort, and often, addiction becomes that place of safety. Even if it's harmful, it's a refuge. But honesty is like a key that unlocks this prison, and to use it, you need courage. When I was honest with myself, I realized the weight I had been carrying unnecessarily. Every addiction, every destructive habit, was like an anchor keeping me in the same place. And suddenly, by admitting this, I began to see a path to freedom. The light of truth illuminates our path and reconnects us with who we truly are. Think about it. Being in a dark room where you can't see anything in front of you. The first thing you do is switch on a light. That light is honesty. Without it, you keep stumbling, bumping into walls, unable to find the exit. Addiction has the power to keep you in darkness, but honesty, that gives you back your sight. And more importantly, it gives you control over your own life. I know it's not easy. Admitting we have a problem can be one of the most challenging things, but I guarantee you, it's the only true path to freedom. The sooner you're honest, the sooner you'll start to break free. Remember, we all have weaknesses, but they don't define us. What defines us is what we do with those weaknesses. You can continue living in illusion, or you can look in the mirror and say, I recognize this. I accept that I need to change, and I will change. This is the first step towards transformation. If I could leave you with one phrase to carry on this journey, it would be, for me to change, I need to be honest with myself. Write this in the comments and let this truth echo within you. Honesty will be your guide along the way. Now tell me, what's the addiction you need to face? Feel free to share your story in the comments section. Being honest isn't just an act of courage. It's the first step towards real transformation. Second step, you need to break the illusion. Vices seduce us with the promise of temporary relief. The moment you give in, it feels like you found a solution, a break from stress or pain. But the truth is, this relief is just a mirage, a false sensation that keeps us trapped in an endless cycle of dissatisfaction. The more you seek this relief, the further you drift from true peace. Think about how this works. You turn to a vice, whether it's a drink, a distraction, a behavior, seeking a moment of relief. And the moment you give in, it feels like the problem disappears. But it's only temporary, isn't it? Soon after, the dissatisfaction returns, perhaps even stronger than before, and then you turn to the vice again, in a never-ending cycle. That's where the illusion lies. It seems like the vice solves the problem, but in reality, it only amplifies it. I know exactly what that's like. When I was caught up in procrastination, I fooled myself into thinking that putting things off would give me more time to rest, to relieve the pressure. But in the end, I just piled on more stress, more guilt. The relief I sought so desperately never came, because it was an illusion created by my own mind. Stoic philosophy warns us about this kind of trap. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed, not by things, but by the view they take of them." The vice itself has no power over us. It's the way we see that temporary relief that keeps us trapped. Once you start seeing the vice for what it really is, an empty promise, you begin to free yourself. It's like being bound by a chain that feels unbreakable. Every time you try to free yourself, it seems the chain tightens. But the key to breaking this chain is simple. You need to recognize that the relief you seek from the vice will never be real. Only when you break away from this illusion can you truly achieve freedom. Breaking the illusion is like waking up from a dream. At first it may be uncomfortable, but when you open your eyes and see reality as it is, you find that true peace is within your reach. Now let's talk about gratitude. I know sometimes it seems like a simple word, almost cliché, but throughout my journey, I've realized it's more powerful than we think. It's not just about saying thank you automatically. It's about truly recognizing what we already have and, more importantly, what we don't need. What does this have to do with vices? Everything. When we are dominated by a vice, whatever it may be, we're actually trying to fill a void. This void is often the result of a failure to recognize what we already possess. We always want more, and it's this dissatisfaction that pushes us towards destructive habits. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine that every day when you wake up, you remember the things you're grateful for. It changes everything. I practice gratitude as an antidote to desire, to constant dissatisfaction, and of course, to vices. I'm not talking about something miraculous, but something real, practical. When we are grateful for what we have, we realize that what's around us is already enough. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That sums up the idea of gratitude. It's not our desires that control us, but how we handle them. There was a time when I too looked outside myself for answers that I could only find within. I thought the next purchase, the next drink, the next click would bring me some kind of peace. But do you know what I discovered? The more I desired, the emptier I felt. That's when I started changing my perspective. Instead of focusing on what I didn't have, I began to value what I already possessed. This practice of gratitude started small. At first, it even seemed silly. I'm grateful for a sunny day, I'd think. But over time, this simple exercise expanded. I realized that the more I practiced, the less I desired superficial things. And that's what I want you to understand today. Gratitude isn't just a spiritual practice. It's a powerful strategy to free ourselves from the cycle of vices. When we are truly grateful, we realize we don't need temporary fillers like a vice to feel whole. That's why I challenge you to practice gratitude today. Look around, see what you've already achieved, what you already have. This exercise won't break your habits overnight, but it will plant a powerful seed. A seed that, over time, will blossom and set you free. And here's the phrase I want you to remember and perhaps share in the comments. True wealth lies in what I already have, not in what I desire. I want you to repeat this to yourself, comment it below, and reflect on it. This is profound. Think about it. If you can truly be grateful for what you already possess, what more do you really need? The journey to overcoming habits isn't easy. I know that. But it begins with small steps. It begins with gratitude. When you focus on what you have, on what truly matters, unnecessary desires start to lose their power. It's as if, instead of feeding the habit, you start to feed peace. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic, once said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." Gratitude is just that. It's improving the quality of your thoughts. I want you to comment below. True wealth lies in what I already have. Write that down and see how much this phrase can impact your life in the coming days. Let this phrase echo in your mind whenever you feel the urge for something you know pulls you away from your true essence. By practicing gratitude, you're gradually saying goodbye to your habits. Not by forcing it, but by naturally filling the void with something deeper. Instead of seeking satisfaction in external things, you start to find peace within yourself. And that is true freedom. Now tell me, what are you grateful for today? Now that we've talked about the importance of gratitude as an antidote to desires, I want to guide you through another crucial point on this journey: moderation. Moderation is one of the most important virtues in Stoic philosophy, and for those trying to overcome their habits, it can be the key to achieving self-discipline and, consequently, freedom. It might seem contradictory, right? Talking about freedom when we're setting limits for ourselves. But that's exactly what the Stoics understood so well. True freedom doesn't come from doing everything we want, whenever we want. In fact, living that way often leads to being enslaved by our own desires. True freedom comes from controlling those desires, moderating them, from not being prisoners to the impulses that drag us into destructive habits. When you start to practice moderation, you're taking a concrete step towards controlling your own life. It's like taking the reins of something that once seemed out of control. And do you know what's most amazing about this? Every small success you achieve strengthens that self-control even more. Think about it. How many times have you tried to change a habit and the moment you gave in to a desire thought, "Since I've messed up once, I may as well keep messing up"? That's the mistake many people make. They think they need to be perfect, and any slip-up is seen as failure. But Stoicism teaches us something completely different. Moderation doesn't mean you'll never fail. It means that when you do, you'll know how to get back on track without punishing yourself excessively for it. Let me tell you a little story. When I started practicing moderation, I expected quick results. I thought that after a week, I'd be completely free of certain desires. But life doesn't work that way, and Stoic philosophy reminds us that real change is gradual. There were moments when I gave in to certain habits and, in the past, that would have been reason enough to give up. But something changed when I started to understand the importance of small successes. I remember one specific day when I resisted a temptation that seemed insignificant. It could have gone unnoticed, but I chose to celebrate that moment, not in an extravagant way, but by internally acknowledging the progress I had made. And it was at that moment that I realized the power of moderation. The more you recognize your small successes, the stronger you become. It's like building a wall, brick by brick. The Stoics knew that self-control isn't a one-time event. It's a series of small victories that, accumulated over time, result in inner freedom. This is exactly what I want you to understand. Don't strive for perfection. Value the progress, even if it seems small. Every time you practice moderation, you're reinforcing your self-control. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic emperors and philosophers, said, "You have power over your mind, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The practice of moderation is exactly that. Having control over your desires, over your actions, and not being swept away by circumstances or momentary impulses. When you start celebrating each small victory, you're cultivating that inner strength that makes you capable of resisting greater temptations in the future. And here's an important detail. Moderation doesn't mean completely eliminating the pleasures from your life. It's not about living rigidly or without joy. On the contrary, it's about knowing how to appreciate pleasures in a balanced way, without excess. It's understanding that you can indeed enjoy the good things in life, but without becoming dependent on them. It's about balance, about finding the middle ground. And it's this balance that gives you power. So I challenge you to start practicing moderation today. Don't think of making big changes all at once. Start small. Resist one temptation that you would normally give into. And when you do, acknowledge that success. Don't let it go unnoticed. Value every step forward, because it's exactly these that will strengthen you. Now, I want you to share the following in the comments below. The power lies in small victories. Write this down and reflect on how each small victory you achieve can lead to a complete transformation. When you start recognizing the power of moderation, life becomes lighter. The burden of desires and addictions eases, and you begin to experience a freedom that once seemed impossible. Believe me, you don't need grand achievements to change your life. You just need to take the first step, practice moderation, and celebrate every success along the way. This is the Stoic's secret to achieving true freedom. When you free yourself from the impulses that control you, you discover that life has so much more to offer. Don't wait for a big moment of change. Start now, with small steps. We're halfway through the video, and if you've made it this far, I ask you to give a like so I can feel encouraged to bring more content like this in the future. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm going to share will be indispensable for anyone fighting a vice that's dragging them towards failure. I also want to remind you that I'm offering my new ebook, Conquer Procrastination with Stoic Philosophy, the definitive guide to success. In this ebook, I reveal the secret techniques that great philosophers use to eliminate procrastination. Are you looking for a successful life and overcoming your vices? Click the first pinned comment and download my ebook right now. Now that we've already talked about the importance of gratitude and moderation, there's another essential element in this journey of transformation: consistency. Gratitude and moderation give us powerful tools to deal with our desires, but without consistency, these practices become fleeting. And when it comes to overcoming vices and cultivating a more balanced life, it's consistency that turns these actions into a new lifestyle. Consistency is what keeps us on track, even when things seem difficult. And believe me, there will be tough moments. No journey of transformation is linear. There are ups and downs. But it's precisely in those moments that constant practice makes all the difference. And do you know what the secret is? Positive self-talk. For a long time, I underestimated the power of the words I said to myself. I used to think that the battle against vices and impulses was just a matter of willpower. But over time, I learned that what we say to ourselves directly shapes our actions. If you see yourself as someone weak or incapable of overcoming your vices, that's exactly what you'll become. On the other hand, if you constantly remind yourself that you are capable, that every small step forward is moving you in the right direction, that mindset creates strength. Once, I read a quote that deeply resonated with me. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit, attributed to Aristotle. This applies perfectly to the issue of vices. No one overcomes a vice overnight. You need to build a habit. And this is where consistency comes in. Every time you get up and choose to practice self-control, you are building a habit. Every time you decide to be grateful for what you already have, Rather than seeking satisfaction in a vice, you are strengthening this new way of thinking. I know there are days when it feels like nothing is working. Days when you might think, why keep trying? I always fall back again. But it's precisely in those moments that consistency becomes even more important. It's not about never failing. It's about how you get up after a fall. It's about choosing to continue, even when everything inside you says to give up. I remember a particularly challenging phase when I was trying to change some destructive habits. There were days when it felt like nothing was going right, and the temptation to revert to old patterns was huge. But there was something I repeated to myself every day. Today, I have control. It may sound simple, but those words helped me remember that even when the world outside seemed chaotic, I still had control over my actions and thoughts. And that consistency, that repetition, helped me redirect my negative thoughts towards a path of self-control. Consistency is like water shaping a stone. At first glance, it may seem like not much is happening, but over time, the repetition of small actions creates significant changes. And when it comes to overcoming addictions, this is the key. It's not about an immediate great victory, but rather small, consistent wins that together build a new pattern of life. Persistence is your greatest ally. Each time you practice positive self-talk, decide to be kind to yourself, and remember that you're in control, you are consciously directing your thoughts. Instead of letting negative thoughts dominate you, you begin to train your mind to focus on self-control. And I'll tell you, one of the best ways to strengthen consistency is to recognize the progress you're making, no matter how small it may seem. This reinforces positive behavior and gives you the motivation needed to keep going. Imagine that each day is a new opportunity to practice, a new chance to get closer to the version of yourself you want to be. By doing this, you are, little by little, replacing old habits with new, healthier, and more mindful ones. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic philosopher, reminded us of the importance of persistence, even in the face of difficulties. He said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." And this mindset of approaching each day as an opportunity is exactly what consistency teaches us. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be consistent. This is what turns an intention into reality. Now I challenge you. Every time you catch yourself thinking, "I can't do it," or "it's not worth trying," change that dialogue. Tell yourself, "I am capable." Write it down, internalize it, and remind yourself of it every day. Consistency is what will guide you through the most challenging moments. Don't get discouraged by setbacks. They're part of the journey. What matters is that you keep going, that you don't give up. And in time, you'll realize that what once seemed impossible will become your new reality. One step at a time with persistence and consistency, you'll get there. Now tell me, what's the small step you'll take today to build your freedom? Now that we've talked about gratitude, moderation, and consistency, I want to bring up a crucial point on this journey: the importance of embracing imperfection. If there's something we need to accept when trying to overcome our addictions, it's that the path won't be perfect. There will be good days and bad days, moments of victory and moments of relapse. And that's okay. The mistake often is thinking that we need to be flawless to break free from destructive habits. But the truth is that learning lies precisely in the imperfections. Each time we fall, there's an opportunity to learn something new. Maybe about our limitations, about what still needs strengthening, or even about our own resilience. Instead of blaming ourselves when we face a setback, we can see these moments as an essential part of the growth process. After all, who hasn't made mistakes? Perfection is not the goal. In fact, it's a trap, because when we pressure ourselves to be perfect, we end up giving up at the first mistake. The focus, then, should be on learning. Each obstacle, each relapse, brings with it a valuable lesson. And this lesson is what makes us stronger, more prepared to continue. Imagine that with each stumble, you are shaping yourself, refining yourself, like a rough stone gradually taking form. The important thing is not the stumble, but what you do afterwards. If you get up and decide to keep going, you're already one step closer to where you want to be. As Stoic philosophy says, what stands in the way becomes the way. Difficulties aren't here to stop you, but to teach you something that will make you more resilient. So, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be discouraged by the idea that you need to be perfect to overcome your addictions. True success lies in the ability to learn from each mistake and move forward. What matters is continuing, day after day, understanding that each fall is part of the transformation process. Breaking a habit isn't a battle won overnight. In fact, it's a process that requires a generous dose of patience, and that's what I'll talk about now. When we are focused on changing a habit or overcoming an addiction, we often become anxious to see immediate results. We want to feel like we're progressing quickly, and when that doesn't happen, frustration can take over. But true progress, the kind that lasts, happens slowly, in small steps that, though invisible at first, build a solid foundation for success. It's like planting a tree. At first, you don't see anything happening. It seems as though all the effort is in vain, but beneath the surface, the roots are forming, gaining strength, and spreading. Over time, these roots will support the tree, which will grow strong and healthy. The same happens when we work to break an addiction. Every small choice we make, every time we resist temptation, even if it doesn't seem like much at the time, is laying the foundation for transformation. Being patient with yourself is one of the greatest challenges on this journey. It may seem like the progress is too small, but it is precisely in these small advances that change happens. You don't need giant leaps. What you need is consistency and patience to allow each step to lead you in the right direction. When you start to feel impatient or frustrated, remember that real progress is slow but steady. The Stoics always reminded us that true strength comes from perseverance and patience. Small advances add up to great achievements over time. So, keep going. Even if it seems like nothing is changing, know that you are building something powerful. We've talked about patience, which teaches us to value time and small progress. Now let's explore something that goes hand in hand with this patience. Mindfulness. When we are present in the moment, we can deal with our temptations much more consciously, allowing us to make more rational and less impulsive choices. Mindfulness is the practice of being completely present in the here and now. It seems simple, but in the rush of everyday life, we are constantly with our minds in the past or worrying about the future. And it is in this distracted state that addictions find a gap to dominate us. When we act on autopilot, temptations seem bigger and harder to resist. But by practicing mindfulness, we begin to notice the moments when our desires arise, and with that, we have the opportunity to make more conscious decisions. Imagine you are facing a temptation. It could be the desire to give in to an old habit, something you are trying to quit. If your mind is wandering, the tendency is that you give in before you even realize what is happening. But by being present, you gain a precious space between impulse and action. In this space, you have the chance to reflect and choose not to give in. Mindfulness is not just a technique, it's a way of living more consciously. By being present, you begin to notice patterns, moments when your temptations are stronger, and over time, you develop the self-control needed not to be carried away by them. Being present in the now is the key to making wiser decisions and building a more balanced life. So, next time you feel that impulse leading you towards a vice or habit you want to break, stop. Breathe. Bring your mind back to the present moment. Ask yourself, will this decision bring me closer to or further from the person I want to be? The answer, when you are mindful, becomes much clearer. Now that we've talked about the importance of mindfulness in dealing with temptations, let's take another step on this journey of self-control and understanding. We've reached a crucial point, the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. At some point in life, we all face challenges, relapses, frustrations. But what many don't realize is that suffering is a choice. And this is exactly what the Stoics teach us. We can choose how to react to pain and, in doing so, avoid unnecessary suffering. When you face a difficult situation, such as an intense craving or a relapse, pain may appear. It's natural, but what you do with that pain is what really matters. If you hold on to it, blame yourself, allow yourself to sink into negative thoughts, that's when suffering begins. Suffering arises when we let pain take over, when we cannot free ourselves from the emotions it stirs up. And often, this suffering is completely unnecessary. The practice of consciously observing our emotions without letting them dominate us is key to breaking this cycle. Picture yourself in a situation that would normally bring suffering. Instead of reacting automatically, try just observing. Feel the emotion, recognize the pain, but don't cling to it. Understand that you have the power to choose how to react. And in doing so, you begin to see that, while the pain is real, suffering can be avoided. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminded us that men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. This means that the way we interpret pain is what determines whether we will suffer or not. If we can view pain as a natural part of the process, without surrendering to suffering, we become stronger, more resilient. So, here's the phrase I want you to take with you. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Write it down, comment below, and reflect on the power of this phrase. When you accept pain without letting it dominate you, you break the cycle of unnecessary suffering and become the true master of your emotions. Remember, next time you feel the pain of a relapse or difficulty, that it is part of the process. But suffering? That you can choose to leave behind. We've reached the final point of this journey of reflection, being a Stoic. So what does it truly mean to be Stoic? I can tell you that it's not about being perfect, nor about never failing. Being Stoic is about being resilient. It's understanding that every fall, every mistake, is an opportunity for learning and growth. Stoic philosophy teaches us that, in the face of difficulties, we are not defined by our mistakes, but by how we respond to them. Relapsing is part of the process of letting go of harmful habits and vices. What matters is that you rise after each fall, stronger and more determined. Instead of punishing yourself for your failures, learn from them. Accepting our weaknesses is not a sign of weakness itself, but of strength. Being Stoic means staying on the path of continuous improvement, knowing that perfection is unattainable, but progress is what truly counts. Be Stoic in your life. Learn to master your desires, but also embrace your weaknesses with compassion. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you choose to get back up. That's what being Stoic is, having the courage to keep going, to be better each day, even when the road ahead is tough. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last challenge. Today, choose one small step to practice that resilience. It could be resisting a vice for just one day, or reflecting on the lessons from a recent mistake. What matters is to act. And while you're here, feel free to share in the comments your biggest lesson of the day. How will you apply what you've learned? If this content resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more reflections that can transform your life. And of course, share this with someone who you think needs to hear this today. Let's go on this journey of growth and self-control together. Remember, being Stoic is choosing progress over perfection. And you? Are you ready to take the next step? I'll see you in the next video.